Hey there, Nick. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing good. Thanks for meeting with me again today. I know the last time we spoke, we just spoke a lot about how you're feeling right now. You mentioned to me that you're feeling really overwhelmed with everything that you got going on, right? You mentioned there was a lot. You mentioned that you're new to college, first generation. You're caring for your parents, both of who are sick. You're the primary caregiver for your little sister, especially since your two older brothers, they're off working right now, so they're not at home. And that you're also working. And so my goal is that we can kind of help you process through that and find some ways to uplift your mood. And so today I'm going to go over something called behavior activation with you. I know in the past that you've had some supports in place that really helped you in high school, right? You mentioned a lot of clubs, you were part of student council, you did a lot of projects for them, a lot of hobbies. But since you've started college and you have more responsibilities, you're feeling overwhelmed, and it sounds like you're not engaging in any of those activities. Did I get that right?
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Okay, okay. Well, listing all of that, it's easy to see how you can be feeling overwhelmed, why someone would feel overwhelmed with all of that on their plate. And I know that if we stay in that emotional place too long, we can have bigger consequences. You came to me because you were already seeing some of those consequences. You mentioned that you weren't doing so hot in your classes, and that your professor you've had before, he noticed that things had changed from one semester to the next. And so I'm really glad that the professor saw that and that you took that first step to come see me so we can talk through this. Yeah. So I would love to talk to you today and just kind of learn a little bit more about how our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, how they all work together, and how we can use that knowledge of those inner workings to change our own mental state, to change how we're feeling. And then, which just gives us more space to breathe and think. What do you think? You want to talk about behavior activation and see what that's about?
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Okay, okay. So I think the easiest way to kind of explain the concept of behavior activation to you is to use your current situation, which at the end of our call, we'll talk about ways you can use the same system for positive results, right? To get those behaviors and feelings and thoughts that you're wanting. But just to kind of paint a picture of how behavior activation works, we can use your current situation. And so you mentioned that you're feeling overwhelmed. What would you say, um, what would you say kind of was the catalyst of that overwhelm? When did that start?
I'd say for me it was like leaving high school and the support system and
Okay.
friend groups that I had there, and then I come to college, and that just
Okay. Okay. So leaving high school changed the support system, and since then you've been feeling overwhelmed.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else about leaving high school that you feel contributing to your feelings of overwhelm?
I don't know. Maybe it was like feeling like having to grow up, not being a kid anymore, or responsibilities, which made me feel guilty too for being in college and like helping with the family working, just stuff
Okay.
like that.
Okay, okay. So now, perfect. You're moving into some of those other components, right? Like our feelings. How do we feel about it? Emotions does it provoke? So we had this situation leaving high school, and that kick-started all these other categories we're going to talk about today. So let's take a look at them closer, and then we can check to see, again, more helpful ways that you can kind of change those thoughts and behaviors and emotions to something more pleasing, right? Something more satisfying and something more sustainable, right? So you can do the things that you're trying to do. Um, I always like to give an analogy to kind of explain it too, like how, obviously you have the example of how behavior activation is not working out well for you. But I also want to talk about how we can use it to benefit us. So I use the friend
Okay.
analogy. Your friend invites you out, which but you don't want to go. You prefer to stay home. Maybe you don't have the money to go out, or maybe you're just trying to take it easy at home, right? But you don't want to go. And you
Yeah.
have all these thoughts about it, right? Like, oh, I'm broke. I don't have enough money. I don't want to go. That doesn't sound fun to me. But you decide to go anyways. Maybe they convince you, or maybe you just decide, hey, I need to go out, and you have a great time. So just you went from the situation of being invited out and the thought of, oh, I don't want to go. That doesn't sound like fun. But then you pushed through it and you did a behavior. You went out and you had a good time. So you
Yeah.
effectively changed your emotions, but you're also changing your
Totally.
thoughts because you're thinking about, oh, I had a good time. So you've completely altered your emotional state just by doing one thing. You went out. And so I'm going to show you a chart that kind of shows this.
Okay.
Let me find it. Okay. So the situation. So that would be in your situation, that is leaving high school. In the analogy I gave, in the story I gave, that is being invited to go out, right? Something needs to happen that kind of kickstarts all of this process. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
So if we go through what you already shared with me, your catalyst for your current feelings and situation is leaving high school and your support system. You've shared some thoughts about that situation with me already, but I want to remind some of the things. But do you want to remind me some of the things you thought about the challenges of switching from high school to college? Like, what were some of those thoughts you had with that situation?
Yeah. So, um, definitely like not not being important because it seemed like no one was checking in on me and like asking me how I was doing, you know.
Okay, kind of that
Um,
friend group you were talking about before, that support system.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you had thoughts about not being important as you found yourself without that regular support.
Hmm.
Next, we can check and see, like, how did this impact your emotions? So here you are feeling like somebody without support. How did that impact your emotions?
I felt lonely, like we were always there for each other in high school, and I didn't expect so much distance between us. And then, like, even without them, like, living so close anymore, like, I questioned how strong our relationship was.
Okay, okay. So this thought about not being important brought up feelings of loneliness, and it sounds like maybe feelings of insignificance. Would you say that fits?
Well, I've never really thought about it like that, but I haven't been doing anything for myself, like I mentioned. I don't even know what my own needs are. I think it's just kind of confused me to stick to my own responsibilities and like forget the, or excuse me, not confused, but like it's just caused me to like want to stick to my own responsibilities and forget about my own social life altogether.
Okay, okay. So kind of abandon that idea of a social life since this one didn't pan out, your high school friends, you haven't engaged in a social life in college.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'm wondering, as you say that now, as you come to realize that your thoughts and feelings have caused you to isolate yourself and stop engaging socially, how does that make you feel, right? To sit with that truth. Where do you feel that embody? You can close your eyes and focus inwards if you're unsure.
I feel like a tightness in my chest, that I feel like I'm so lonely, but that I'm not doing anything to change that. I'm sinking in my own loneliness, which is just only making things worse.
How so?
I've never failed classes before, and I didn't realize how important my friends were for, showing up in my other areas, like how those two correlated.
Okay, okay. Well, that's a huge breakthrough, Nick, right there. But we don't want to stay in that place of blaming ourselves, right? Because then we're just doing the exact same thing again. We're keeping ourselves in the same spot. I want to switch gears though, right? We don't want to focus. That's the situation that you're trying to figure out, right? And so let's talk about how we can use this thought process to generate more positive emotions and experiences. we can't fully regulate how we feel at any given point, nor can we simply think up thoughts that aren't really true, right? We can't just make ourselves feel a certain way or change our thoughts to fit a pattern that that we like more, right? That suits us better. But we can change what we do. A lot of our power in this whole thing, it's lying in the behavior part, right? Um, and so even our physical reactions, those are reactions, not responses. That we have little control, but we do have a ton of control on what we do. And what I hear you saying is that you don't have many activities that are bringing you happiness, right? That bring you joy, that activate good feelings and good thoughts and even good physical reactions, right? We can feel good in our body. And so I'm wondering if that might be a good place for us to kind of start diving into in future sessions, kind of figuring out what makes Nick happy, what's aligned with your values, and what can you start doing on a regular basis that's for you just to get some of these these happier chemicals flowing for you. What do you think? Do you think that would be a good plan?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great plan. I've definitely never really thought of what my values are, and then, to sit there and like really establish all of that. So yeah, that sounds like great plan of
Okay.
action.
Okay, definitely. Well, we'll find a few things that you can kind of do regular, nothing crazy, right? Nothing where it feels stressful just to add these activities into your day. But even simple things. And we want to be careful about how we pick those things, right? To make sure they truly match up with you. So I think this will be a great way to spend our sessions moving forward is just kind of figuring out, kind of back to that, what you mentioned. Earlier in this conversation and our last appointment about not really knowing what your needs are. And so we can kind of figure that out through your values. Some of that starts to become clear. So I look forward to kind of exploring with you, what you can add to your days to kind of try to break out of this cycle and use behavior activation to just activate more happiness, right? Decrease this overwhelm for you.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Thank you.
All right, cool, Nick. Well, I'll go ahead and turn off the camera here and then we can go ahead and get scheduled for next week. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.